building stood like a fortress of glass and steel in the heart of downtown Chicago, its windows gleaming with the reflection of city lights. At midnight, the world inside had gone silent. Executives gone home, meetings adjourned, deals paused until morning. But one person still moved through those echoing halls, a woman most people never noticed. Her name was Clara Johnson, 54 years old, African-American, a night cleaner at Hawthorne Global, the empire of billionaire Alexander Hawthorne. With her gray uniform and rolling cart, she moved from office to office, wiping fingerprints from glass tables, emptying trash cans filled with forgotten coffee cups, and vacuuming floors where million-dollar shoes had walked hours before. No one greeted her during the day. No one asked her name. To them, she was invisible, replaceable. But tonight would be different. As Clara straightened chairs in the CEO's office, a sudden sound jolted her. The phone. It rang sharp and urgent, slicing through the silence. She froze. The glowing screen displayed a long string of numbers with a foreign country code. The ringing didn't stop. Her instinct screamed, "Don't touch it, you'll get fired." But something in the persistence of the sound gnawed at her. Whoever was calling wasn't giving up. Clara whispered to herself, "Girl, don't be stupid." She reached for her cart, but her feet refused to move. The ringing grew louder, heavier, like it was demanding her attention. Finally, with trembling fingers, she lifted the receiver. "Hello?" A man's voice burst through the line, urgent and tense, laced with a German accent. Finally, someone answers. "This is Stefan Klein from Munich. Where is Mr. Hawthorne? We have a crisis. The contract, someone changed it. If it is not corrected tonight, the deal collapses. Billions are at stake." Clara's chest tightened. She wanted to slam the phone due. And she was just the cleaning staff. What business did she have in a billion-dollar conversation? But Stefan didn't let her go. "You work there, yes? Then you must deliver this message. If Hawthorne doesn't fix this, the partnership dies at sunrise." Clara's eyes drifted to the desk. Papers were scattered, highlighted lines glowing under the lamp. She swallowed hard. She had overheard executives before, words like exclusivity clauses and rights management. One phrase jumped out at her from the document: exclusive supplier rights. She remembered. Last week, a young manager had whispered in the elevator that clients hated exclusivity. It made them feel trapped. Gathering every ounce of courage, Clara said slowly, "Sir, I'm not the CEO, I just work nights here. But I think I see the problem. This exclusivity clause, it doesn't belong. Someone slipped it in." Silence. Then Stefan's voice, softer now, almost relieved. Yes. Yes, exactly. Someone altered it. If it stays, my board will cancel. You must make Hawthorne see this. Please. Clara gripped the receiver tighter. She wasn't supposed to meddle. She wasn't supposed to know anything. But she could hear the desperation in Stefan's voice, and something inside her refused to let him down. "I'll make sure he knows first thing in the morning," she promised. "Hold on until then." The line clicked dead. Clara stood frozen, staring at the phone. Her heart pounded in her ears. She had no idea what storm she had just stepped into. But one thing was certain. By answering that phone, she had crossed an invisible line. Tomorrow, the billionaire CEO would find out that the cleaner he never noticed might have just saved his entire company. And Clara Johnson's life would never be the same again. Morning sunlight spilled through the towering glass windows of Hawthorne Global's headquarters. The marble floors gleamed, executives hurried with lattes in hand, and the buzz of deals returning to life filled the air. Clara Johnson moved quietly, pushing her cleaning cart back toward the storage closet. Her shift was over, but her mind was far from at rest. All night, the words of Stefan Klein echoed in her head. Billions are at stake. She had promised to deliver his warning. Now, fear twisted in her stomach. Would anyone even listen? At 8:30 a.m., Alexander Hawthorne entered the building. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a navy suit worth more than Clara's monthly paycheck, he radiated command. Assistants followed him like shadows. He walked past Clara without a glance, just as he always did. To him, she was background noise, but not today. She cleared her throat. Mr. Hawthorne, sir? Her voice was soft, almost trembling. He paused, irritated, turning halfway toward her. Yes? Clara's palms sweated. She wasn't supposed to speak to him, not like this. But she forced the words out. Sir, last night your office phone rang. It was Mr. Stefan Klein from Munich. He said the contract was changed. Something about exclusivity rights. He said the deal would collapse by sunrise if it wasn't fixed. The assistants gasped. Hawthorne's sharp eyes narrowed. You answered my phone? Yes, sir. I thought it was urgent. He was desperate. For a long, suffocating moment, silence reigned. Clara feared she had signed her own termination slip. Then one assistant darted forward, grabbing the contract from the desk. His face went pale. He's right, sir. This clause, it wasn't in the original draft. Hawthorne's jaw tightened. He snatched the paper, scanning it quickly. His calm facade cracked just for an instant. Then his voice cut like steel. Get Klein on the line. Just for now. The office exploded into motion. Phones rang, translators rushed in, lawyers scrambled. Clara stood awkwardly at the edge of the chaos, clutching her cart. She wanted to vanish, but something kept her rooted. Minutes later, Hawthorne was on the phone with Klein, assuring him the issue would be corrected immediately. The crisis cooled, but the atmosphere in the room burned hotter than ever. Executives whispered, side-eyed Clara, lips curling in disdain. One of them, a tall man with slick hair, sneered. We can't have janitors meddling in billion-dollar negotiations. This is outrageous. Another chimed in. What if she misunderstood? We can't risk cleaners playing secretary. The words stung, but Clara kept her chin steady. She had done the right thing. She knew it. Hawthorne finally ended the call, his expression unreadable. He looked at Clara for a long moment. The room fell silent, waiting for his judgment. Mrs. Johnson, he said slowly, you may return to your duties. Her heart sank. That was it? No recognition, no thanks, just dismissal. She nodded, pushing her cart toward the door, but before she left, she heard Klein's words echo again in her memory. You saved this deal. She whispered to herself, respect doesn't come easy, but it will. As the door closed behind her, executives erupted in debate, their arrogance masking the truth they all silently knew. Without the cleaner's midnight courage, Hawthorne Global would have lost its biggest client. And Clara's story was only beginning. The following night, Clara arrived for her shift with a knot in her chest. She tried to shake it off as she pushed her cart into the gleaming lobby. To her, work was work. Wipe, sweep, polish, repeat. But the whispers had already spread. On the 23rd floor, two junior executives passed by her. They didn't lower their voices. That's her, the cleaner who picked up the CEO's phone. Lucky guess, nothing more. She should have been fired. Clara kept her eyes on the floor, but each word felt like a stone thrown at her back. She had survived worse. She reminded herself, dignity is quiet. Dignity endures. Later that evening, while she emptied bins in a glass-walled office, she overheard a more venomous conversation. Senior executives clustered around a conference table, speaking in clipped tones. This woman is a liability, one said. If she thinks she's some kind of savior, she might try again, another added. We should ensure Hawthorne sees this as recklessness, not bravery. Clara froze, the trash bag crinkling in her hands. They weren't just mocking her, they were plotting against her. She left quietly, heart heavy, but resolve unshaken. She had no seat at their table, no voice in their circle, but she knew one truth. Last night, she had saved them all. Around midnight, she paused in the CEO's office again. The city lights glimmered below, and her reflection stared back at her from the giant windows. She whispered, "Don't let them steal your worth, Clara. You know what you did." The next morning confirmed her fears. As she signed out, the building's HR manager stopped her. "Mrs. Johnson, a word. Some executives have raised concerns. They believe you overstepped boundaries. Mr. Hawthorne hasn't made a decision yet, but be careful." Clara nodded politely, but inside, anger flickered. Overstepped? She had saved a billion-dollar deal, yet all they saw was a woman in a uniform, someone they thought didn't belong. Still, she returned that night, Bills didn't wait. Rent didn't pause for dignity. That evening, fate intervened again. At 11:45 p.m., as she polished the boardroom table, the phone rang. This time not the CEO's, but the shared conference line. Against her better judgment, Clara answered cautiously. Hello? It was Stefan Klein once more, his voice thick with urgency. Please tell Hawthorne tomorrow. Our board will only sign if he attends in person. They want reassurance. If he cancels, everything falls apart. Clara's stomach tightened. She promised to deliver the message, but as she hung up, footsteps echoed in the hall. One of the senior executives, the same slick-haired man who wanted her gone, stood there. He smirked coldly. So it's true. Meddling again, are we? Clara felt cornered, but she straightened her back. I don't meddle, sir. I listen. And sometimes listening saves lives or companies. His smirk faded, replaced by a flash of contempt. We'll see how long you last here. He walked away, but Clara's hands trembled. She knew what was coming. They would try to erase her, silence her. What she didn't know was that destiny had already chosen her to stand in the spotlight, because soon, Hawthorne himself would discover the truth, and the empire he built would owe its survival to the cleaner they all tried to forget. The morning after Clara's second late-night call, the tension in Hawthorne Global's headquarters was razor-sharp. Executives buzzed like hornets, whispering about her audacity. Some demanded her termination, while others quietly admitted that her instincts had kept the German client on the hook. Clara returned that night with her shoulders heavy but her spirit unbroken. She told herself she was just there to do her job, but inside, she knew she had stepped into something larger. By midnight, as she dusted the edges of the CEO's vast office, she overheard voices through the slightly open boardroom door. The slick-haired executive was speaking, his tone dripping with disdain. Mr. Hawthorne, with all due respect, we can't have janitors answering phones. This woman is a distraction. Worse, she's a liability. Fire her before she embarrasses us again. Clara froze, her rag clutched in her hand. Then Hawthorne's voice, measured, low, but unmistakably sharp. Liability. She caught something none of you did. She held the client when you all were asleep. Without her, this company would be bleeding billions today. The room went silent. For the first time, someone had defended her, not a colleague, not a peer, but the billionaire CEO himself. Still, the slick-haired man pressed on. Sir, it was luck. She doesn't belong in these matters. If we allow this once, what's next? Will the cleaning staff sit in negotiations? A pause. Then Hawthorne replied, maybe what we need is less arrogance and more people who actually listen. Clara's chest tightened. She quickly slipped away before they noticed her. For the first time, she felt a flicker of hope. The next day, a memo circulated through the company. The Munich deal will be signed in person. Mr. Hawthorne will attend alongside his team. What the memo didn't say was that the German board had specifically asked for reassurance, hence that Hawthorne Global was still trustworthy. And Clara knew, without her intervention, there would have been no deal to secure. That night, as she wheeled her cart down the executive floor, she found Hawthorne himself in his office, still working late. For a moment, she hesitated at the door, then he looked up. Mrs. Johnson, he said, softer than she had ever heard his voice. Come in. She stepped inside nervously, the smell of fresh ink and coffee hanging in the air. I understand you spoke with Mr. Klein again, Hawthorne continued, and that you promised him we would follow through. Clara lowered her eyes. Yes, sir. I only answered because no one else did. I didn't want his words to be wasted. Hawthorne studied her for a long moment, his hands clasped. Do you realize what you've done? You didn't just pass a message. You held together the most important deal of this quarter. That takes presence of mind, courage. Clara swallowed, unsure what to say. Then, unexpectedly, he added, You've been invisible to too many people here, but not anymore. Her throat tightened. For years, she had walked these halls unseen. Now, for the first time, the man at the top had looked straight at her, not as a cleaner, but as a person. When she left the office that night, Clara's steps felt lighter, yet she knew the storm wasn't over. The executives who despised her wouldn't stay silent. They would find ways to push back. And when they did, Clara would have to decide whether to step aside or to step fully into the destiny she never asked for. The storm arrived faster than Clara expected. Within days, whispers turned into open hostility. The slick-haired executive, now red-faced with embarrassment over being corrected by the cleaner he had mocked, rallied his allies. They couldn't openly challenge Hawthorne's defense of her, but they could poison the air around her. It began with small humiliations. A memo circulated implying all staff must remain within their assigned duties, a veiled attack aimed at her. 2 supervisors started timing her breaks, writing down notes as if waiting for her to falter. Even fellow cleaners, pressured by management, grew distant. Clara felt the weight of isolation pressing on her shoulders. She told herself, keep quiet, keep working. But inside, the sting of injustice burned. One evening, as she scrubbed the boardroom floor, she overheard the slick-haired man again. His words froze her blood. We'll let her hang herself. All it takes is one mistake. Hawthorne may admire her now, but once she stumbles, she's gone. Clara's hands trembled on the mop handle. She was no fool. This wasn't just about her job. This was about dignity. They wanted her invisible again, scrubbed away like the floors she polished. But destiny wasn't finished with her. A week later, on the eve of Hawthorne's flight to Munich, disaster struck. A technical glitch scrambled a set of financial projections meant for the German board. The analysts panicked, the executive team bickered, and the report, critical to sealing the deal, was left in chaos. That night, Clara walked into the office as usual. She found papers scattered across the CEO's desk, spreadsheets marked with frantic notes, numbers circled in red ink. Her eyes traced the chaos. She didn't understand every detail, but she noticed something others had overlooked. One column of numbers repeated twice under different labels, a duplication error. Her heart raced. Should she speak, or would they use this against her? The phone rang again. Stephen Klein's voice carried over the line, sharper than ever. Tell Mr. Hawthorne, if the report is wrong tomorrow, our board walks away. Clara inhaled deeply. This was the same choice all over again, silence and safety, or risk and courage. She chose courage. She slipped a note onto Hawthorne's desk, careful and simple. Check duplication in column D, could cause error. The next morning, chaos turned to relief when the error was caught in time. Hawthorne corrected the report before boarding his flight. The German board, satisfied with the accuracy, welcomed him to Munich with trust restored. News of the correction spread quickly through the company. Whispers rose again, this time not of disdain, but of disbelief. Did the cleaner really catch that? Impossible. No, maybe she did. The slick-haired executive seethed, but he could no longer deny it. Twice now, Clara had stepped in where his team had failed. That night, as she left her shift, Clara whispered to herself, respect doesn't come when you're asked to sit quietly. Sometimes you have to stand in the fire to earn it. What she didn't know was that Hawthorne himself had begun to see her not as a liability, but as a silent strength. And soon he would put that strength to the ultimate test, on a stage where no one could ignore her again. The Munich deal closed with thunderous applause inside the German boardroom. Contracts were signed, handshakes sealed, and the billion-dollar partnership was secured. Hawthorne Global had triumphed, yet the quiet hero behind it all was thousands of miles away, mopping floors in Chicago. But destiny had grown too loud to stay hidden. Upon his return, Alexander Hawthorne gathered his senior staff for an announcement. Executives filled the boardroom, smug faces eager for praise. The slick-haired man straightened his tie, already rehearsing how he would take credit. Instead, Hawthorne's voice cut through the room like steel. This company nearly lost its most valuable client, not once but twice. And it wasn't my executive team who saved it. It was someone you all overlooked. Murmurs rippled. The slick-haired man's smirk faltered. Hawthorne turned toward the doorway. Mrs. Clara Johnson, would you step in? Clara froze in the hall. Her uniform was plain, her hands rough from bleach, but when she entered, the air shifted. For the first time, all eyes were on her. This woman, Hawthorne continued, answered a midnight call when no one else was here. She caught a clause that would have killed the deal. She spotted an error that would have destroyed our credibility. Twice she carried this company on her back while others slept. And yet, many of you dismissed her, mocked her, tried to erase her contributions. Silence suffocated the room. Executives shifted uncomfortably, shame washing over their expensive suits. Then Hawthorne's voice rose. Clara Johnson has shown more courage, diligence, and loyalty than any of you who sit at this table. Effective immediately, she will be recognized as part of my advisory council. Her voice matters here. Gasps filled the room. Clara's heart pounded so loudly she thought it might burst. She stammered, "Sir, I don't know what to say." "Say nothing," Hawthorne replied firmly. "You've already spoken with your actions. The world needs fewer talkers and more doers." The slick-haired executive stood abruptly, his face flushed. "This is outrageous. She's just—" Hawthorne's glare cut him off. "Careful. That just cost you your seat at this table. Pack your things. You're finished here." The instant karma struck swift and hard. The very man who had tried to erase her was erased instead. Clara's eyes stung with tears she had long kept buried. For years she had been invisible, surviving in silence. Now she was seen, not as a cleaner, not as a shadow, but as a woman of worth. Later that night, as she rode the bus home, she looked out at the city lights. For once they didn't feel cold or distant. They glimmered like promises. She whispered to herself, "Never let anyone tell you your place. Respect isn't given. It's earned by how you stand when no one's watching." And so the story of Clara Johnson became more than just a company secret. It became a lesson whispered in hallways, shared in meetings, and remembered in silence. Never judge by the uniform. Never underestimate the quiet ones, because sometimes the cleaner you overlook saves the empire you built.